I'm back to talk more about writing and publishing and the journey to success and how to make all of your writerly dreams come true. Okay, maybe I won't give you that secret. It's still early in the year. We'll try and hold that one a little later. But I was watching an old Brandon Sanderson video on YouTube a while back. A while back being, I guess, yesterday. I don't know. But I like to bounce around and see what people are saying on the interwebs. And I like Brandon, so I like his videos. I like his books, but I also like him as a human being. He's always been very kind to me. And despite him being solely responsible for me becoming re-addicted to Magic the Gathering, it's all your fault, Brando. Anyway, so I was watching this video an early video of Brandon's, and it resonated with me and really resonated with something I've been thinking a lot about now that I'm over 15 years into my writing career. Brandon talked about how he was sending books out, but he didn't have anything published at the time of this story. And he said, I had written 12 books. None of them had seen publication. That made me think, this guy kind of exploded onto the public consciousness to a degree with Elantris, but obviously to a far greater degree when he was hired to finish the Wheel of Time series, hand-selected by, I don't actually know the process. I don't remember if Jordan was still alive and was part of selecting Brandon, but I know that Brandon was in large part selected by and did a lot of work with Harriet McDougall, who is Robert Jordan's widow and was also his editor. So Brandon, by all intents and purposes, exploded onto the scene with 12 trunk novels. A.J. Hartley, good friend of mine, Falstaff Books published author, great dude. You've probably seen I'm a 60-year-old British guy who loves Japanese pop music videos. If you haven't and you want to learn about baby metal and Japanese pop music, highly recommend. I mean, his writing stuff is also good, but let's face it, the man's an absolute expert on J-pop. It's funny because it's true, he is. But anyway, AJ came out of the gate. New York Times bestseller, first book ever published. Also had a dozen novels published in his trunk, a dozen unpublished novels, which are what we call trunk novels. I talk to folks like Faith Hunter, who had been in the writing game for close to 20 years before Jane Yellowrock broke huge and put her as a perennial New York Times bestseller. And then somebody like Matt Dinneman, who exploded onto the scene in 2020 with Dungeon Crawler Carl, and oh my God, this brand new voice in fiction and literature, whose first published novel was in 2004 and was broke as a damn convict when he first uploaded Dungeon Crawler Carl to Royal Road. Matt gives this speech at conferences now, and it's fantastic. It's a fantastic talk about him literally being broke as hell. The world had just shut down because of the pandemic, and Matt didn't know what the hell he was going to do to make a living. So he put this book up on Royal Road, and it exploded, and now he does okay. If you've watched this channel at all, you'll know that I'm a big Dungeon Crawler Carl fan. I'm a big Matt Dinneman fan and a friend. he does okay is a little bit of an understatement. So, what does it mean to be a success? If I'm not John Scalzi, spoiler alert, I am not John Scalzi. I'm much taller, and I have much more hair, and far fewer Hugos. But if I'm not John Scalzi and I don't win the Campbell Award for my first frickin' novel, well, is my career over? Can you have a career without being an overnight success? What does it mean to be an overnight success? The vast majority of people that I know that are overnight successes busted their ass for a lot of years to get there. It's very rare that someone just comes out of the gate and wins every award or tops everybody's best of the year list. Martha Wells is sitting on top of the world right now with Murderbot. It's a fantastic series. If you haven't read it, you damn sure need to. It's incredible. And everybody's like, oh, where did she come from? Well, she came from writing, jackass. She's been in the business for a hot minute. Most of the people who are overnight successes, they've been at it for a while. Chuck Wendig didn't pop onto the scene with a Star Wars book. Chuck had, close to a dozen books out before he wrote for Star Wars and before he became one of the tippy-top horror writers in the business today. If you come out of the gate and you're met with nothing, or the crowd goes completely mild for your debut, that's okay. It's all right to start off at the bottom of a list. I sure as hell did. And I make a living doing this. Not YouTube. I don't actually make any money off YouTube yet. But if you like and subscribe and leave a comment to boost us in the algorithm, we may eventually get enough viewers and views to be monetized, and I may be able to, I don't know, buy a poster or something? Anyway, take a second, click some buttons, ring a bell, and then Gandalf is trying to put his head in a Mountain Dew box. His head is about the only part of that fat-ass cat that will fit in a Mountain Dew box. Also, I need to take out the recycling because my cat is trying to crawl into a Mountain Dew box. Anyway, my first month as a published author, I self-published my first book, The Chosen. God, do I even have a copy of it on the shelf? I don't. I need to order myself a copy of The Chosen to put on my brag shelf. Oops. But I published The Chosen in August of 2009, and the first month I sold 27 copies of the ebook. And I thought, here I am, I have arrived. I'm selling about 2 copies a day because I published it in the middle of the month. On my birthday, actually. I pressed publish on August 14th, 2009. And I sold about 2 copies a day for the rest of August. Then September, I sold 9. Oh, I guess I'm not gonna be rich right this second, huh? And then in October, it sold a few more than 9, and then it began to grow. And then I published the first book in the Black Knight Chronicles, The Hard Day's Night, and things started to pick up. It turns out that nerdy vampire detectives are an easier sell than a contemporary fantasy featuring biblical characters in the modern world. That one, a little heady. Nerdy vampire detectives, a little more earthy. Also, the tone of Black Knight Chronicles was closer to heady, and the tone of The Chosen was closer to earthy. So I may have missed the mark in promoting that first book. the hell did I care? I still had a day job at the time, a good one. So I was writing for me and for nobody but me, but I still wanted to sell books. So Hard Day's Night took off, the Black Knight Chronicles took off, and I'm written another 3 dozen novels since then, and I do okay. But I've still never made a New York Times bestseller list. I've never been nominated for a major award. I've never had a standalone novel published by a big New York press. I've had a couple of short stories in New York published anthologies, but other than that, I've been all small press and indie for 15 years. So let's say I finish this thriller, please God, let's say I finish this thriller that I'm working on, and I sell it for a great big bucket of money to a great big press and come out of nowhere with my debut novel. Will I be an overnight success? No, I won't. I'll be a mid-list fantasy writer who's busted his ass for 15 years to finally write the thing that resonates with a great big pile of people. And if that happens, that'll be awesome. And if I continue to work as a mid-list fantasy writer for the rest of my career, well, as long as I can keep the bills paid and the cats fed, that's fine too. I like the books I'm writing. I like the work that we're putting out. And I'm pretty happy to do that. But the idea that if you don't succeed with your first thing, the idea of that is nuts. You're not really supposed to come out of the gate and be amazing. Let's take a look at NFL quarterbacks, for example. The vast majority of them are not ready to step onto the field right out of college. Ask David Carr, for example. Or any rookie quarterback who has come in, gotten shellacked because the game is so much faster than what they know in college, and then they're out of the league in 5 years. When you get some time to work at a job and learn it and get better at it, you have a long, healthy career. So struggling along as a mid-list writer is perfectly fine. Maybe you break out. Maybe you don't. You don't have to. Your writing goals are not measured by anyone else's. My success is not measured by the success of my friends, which is good because I have some really successful friends, and that would be really bad for my mental health. If I'm trying to measure my book sales against Jonathan Mayberry or Sherilyn Kenyon, well, I'm coming up pretty short. But if I try to measure my 2025 book sales against my 2024 book sales, then I have something that I can actually actively work on to make my career and my life better. The only way I could try to improve my book sales relative to another author would be to trash talk that other author. And not only is that a dick move, it's also very likely to backfire on you, as can be seen by quite a few people who have openly taken runs at big popular writers for no reason other than trying to make their bones at someone else's expense. And if you don't believe this happens, follow John Scalzi on social media, because it happens to him all the time. For some reason, people who are opposed, for some reason, there's a lot of people who hate John Scalzi. I don't understand why. I like the guy a lot. He's been very helpful to me in my career. He's been nothing but kind, nothing but generous with his time. And he's a very good writer. Is he Guy Gavriel Kay? Well, no, he's not. Only Guy Gavriel Kay is Guy Gavriel Kay. Is Scalzi's stuff pop culture? Yeah, sure is. very good pop culture. I loved Starter Villain, loved Kaiju Preservation Society. I have enjoyed a lot of his books. But there seems to be a whole cottage industry of people trying to make their bones shitting on somebody bigger than them. I've never seen it work for anyone. I've never seen anyone come out of that kind of behavior doing well for themselves in the writing world. It's not like a rap beef where you're laying down diss tracks. And although I would pay good money to watch diss tracks between Chuck Wendig and Richard Kadrey, because just the creative forms of profanity that those two men could come up with, that would be hilarious. Also, I know that Chuck and Richard like each other just fine, so it would be a literal game as opposed to someone actually trying to take shots. But that's what I'm saying is you can't control anyone else's career. So you have to be your own measuring stick. You're not trying to be an overnight success. Because in the writing industry, it is not better to burn out than to fade away, no matter what the Kurgan said. In the writing business, it's better to have a Pete Rose career without the gambling. Not that I'm opposed to gambling. But set records for the number of base hits you record. Don't set records for home runs, because your home run leader is probably your strikeout leader too. Your touchdown leaders are usually your interception leader too. But a lot of times it's the guys who are getting 5 yards a carry that win Super Bowls. So make base hits, make short throws, complete screen pass. I am using a lot of sports references for a writing channel, and I am not jock enough to keep this up. So don't worry, there won't be. I will stop with the sports metaphors sometime after the NFL playoffs are over, or the college football playoffs for that matter. R.I.P. Bulldogs. So when you are looking at building a career, because that's what you and I are trying to do with these videos, you on the consuming end, me on the creating end. I'm not trying to build superstars. I'm not trying to build the next insert award-winning writer name here. I'm trying to give you tools so that you can build a long, sustainable career. I'm not looking to give you the tips that are going to make you a million-selling author next week. One, because anyone who says they can make you a million-selling author in a week and their method doesn't involve you buying 1 million copies of your own book, well, then they're lying to you. What they can tell, they may be able to tell you this week's method of gaming the system, which is a loophole that'll be closed next week. Then you pay them another $200 for their course on how to game this system this week. I want you to have a solid, decades-long career, which, for the record, you can begin later in life. You do not have to be a 20-something to have a decades-long career. Like I said, I'm 15 years into this career, which means I started this when I was 36. A lot of the people I've talked about didn't publish their first book until in their 30s. Several of them didn't find a great deal of success with their books until they were in their 40s. So there's nothing wrong with starting later. Your career is not over if you're 30 and haven't made a New York Times bestseller list. Hell, I was 30 and hadn't even written a novel. So obviously I think you can make a fine career. I'm not interested in being an overnight success. I'm interested in being a consistently successful author. I don't have to come out of the gate and be a mega star. I'm very content to just feed my family and my cats and be able to do this for a living and share stories with people. So don't sweat if it takes a while. It's worth it. And you can get there. Measure against yourself, not anyone else. And you'll get there. Keep at it. Rock on, all right? And now I'm going to go get some writing done. So, you kids play nice, try to behave, and I'll see you later. Bye.